My name is Meredith White, and I'm at Collins Hill High School. I am the role that formerly was local school technology coordinator, a title that I really liked. It's changed now to, and I have to think really hard, instructional technology and innovation coach.
Oh,
So that's technically what it's called, but I kind of like the previous one. But basically, instructional support and instructional technology support to teachers, all levels, all content areas, specifically at the high school level in a high school at Collins Hill.
okay. Explain what you did before that and kind of your transition into your
Mhm.
job.
Yeah. So for 16 years, I was a Spanish teacher, levels 1 and 2, my favorites. So my entire background and experience is all instructional, day to day high school, except 1 year that also included elementary.
What made you want to switch?
Mhm. Yeah, I wanted to switch and in full transparency, do something outside of the classroom, beyond the classroom, day to day for a number of reasons. But honestly, and this is going to sound like an egomaniac thing to say, but again, in full transparency, I want to obviously be super honest. I felt like I had other talents that weren't being tapped into. And I felt like I was like, just that I had more to offer. And like I said, that sounds obviously classroom teaching is amazing and you can make a huge impact. I mean, obviously, that isn't the point. You just want to do right by kids. Hopefully, you enjoy your content area and you want to do your best and get them as many wins as possible day to day in that, and just contribute to school being enjoyable for them. I felt that I also had things to offer to adults, that would cross over, like things that I was good at with kids. I'm like, oh yeah, this really works, in professional settings. And I'm also and sort of a person that presents a lot at different conferences. So I was realizing I was looking forward to those things more and the day to day in the classroom, like a little bit less. It was both kind of like, I feel like I can do some other things. And I think I'm ready to do some other things. And so it kind of was a perfect storm. Plus, there were more technology positions being created and technology for teaching when appropriate or eliminating some of the technology when it's too much have always been passions of mine in teaching anyway. So it kind of fit and I took the leap and it's so far worked out.
Awesome. And then
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this too. You just mentioned that you presented a lot at conferences. Have you presented anything technology wise, or is that more Spanish language?
Always, yeah, always basically the 2 together. So my first conference presentation was in 2010, and it was all about Google Voice, and, like, how to use that for I mean, it's still around and it looks the same, but we do not use it like we used to. And so I think that was almost 15 years ago, 14 years ago, and, there's always been a touch of technology in my presentations for sure.
Okay, give me an example of a day in the life in your job. I'm
Oof.
sure it changes every day, but
A day in the life. Well, first of all, you find your, seatbelt, figuratively or literally, and just buckle in for just a whirlwind. The same way that teaching is a whirlwind, it's like teaching, you never really know what's going to happen, but I find that's behavioral. Like you don't know what the kids are going to come in with. You don't know like what your colleague is going to say, or maybe they call out. Now you're rushing. Like there's still some of that same kind of thing with this role, a day in the life is very much situational. So not managing behavior or those kind of unexpected things, but situations without the same freedom to kind of close your door and say, you know what, we're actually going to scrap today's lesson. Let's do a review instead. Let's play some Gimkit. Let's do whatever. There's like more flexibility, but the control's out of your hands. So a day could look like getting in there at 6:45, finding out that something is down because inevitably it is. And it's like Edulastic, the testing platform, as you know. But for somebody who might not work with us, testing platforms down, but they've called the district office, and sometimes those tech people don't get until 8, which is a little problematic since we start at 7:10. And we don't know that it's not working till then, until students are logging in front of teachers, right? And so usually it's like checking email, checking Teams, and I like those for both long-term and immediate kind of issues. So like checking that communication, figuring out what's working, Hopefully everything is. Most of the time everything is, but
Mhm.
about 2 days out of the week, something's not. And so figuring out like sending out communication to that. Also just walking around, just physically being present and being visible, even if you're not going to a certain place to do something, before first period is really, for me, really helpful. And then sometimes some of those tech tickets answer themselves, which is what I'm discovering of somebody will go, hey, while you're here, any of those weekly routines too, for example, like a Monday, we send out our admin bulletin and make sure that my principal, who like making sure she hasn't sent me anything that's like, hey, we need this to go out Monday ASAP. So figuring out all those kind of things, sending out any communication, programming, social media, those are usually kind of morning tasks to just double check that we've got everything that's supposed to go out that day. And then it kind of phases into like problem solving, like whatever's coming. Cause by then somebody's been like, hey, it's, 8 o'clock. So all that's like before 8. And then by 8, like now we have more answers for the things that were down, or somebody says, hey, for lunch, can you cover this? So just really like a lot of times on the move. And then the rest of the day is whatever anybody needs you for, slash also finding time for those things that are just going to take like 2 hours sitting at the computer, putting something in back and forth. But that usually doesn't happen till after everyone's gone. That's like teaching, like everyone leaves. You're like, finally, I can get some work done. So it's just really a lot of like, go, 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 hurry up and wait for a second, go, 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 hurry up and wait for a second. And one thing that's been really hard to adjust to is also to get people answers, because that whole time, all day, emails and Teams messages are like bring, 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 like
Mhm.
tickets are coming through, all the notifications. Um, the thing that I've had a hard time that's just been really hard to adjust to is to get somebody an answer for A, you need to ask like 4 other people. It's a lot of trying to take things off of other people's plate ends up being most of those tasks, because you can usually carve out the space and the time to do it, but really just a whirlwind, just like a Tasmanian devil, Looney Tunes, like go, go, go until everybody leaves. Then you have a second to yourself. And then the next day it's like still a Tasmanian devil whirlwind, but totally different issues.
Yeah,
So it's a lot. Hmm.
got it. That's wow. It's very interesting because I know that there's stuff that you have to implement and
Right.
do. And
Right.
you're right, there's probably not a lot of times that during the day.
And every school is different, which is so interesting. So I could learn from like Sean or Stephanie or whatever. And then my principal wants me to do it totally differently. Or she says, no, we don't
Right.
do that. And maybe I've already like researched and found an answer. So I've also learned kind of who to ask for those things. Like, hey, so and so asked for such and such. Is that a thing we do? And really like kind of navigating that newfound, I'd say, kind of leadership aspect of it, because as a teacher it was just like, yeah, close my door, pretty much do whatever I want, work with my team, work with kids, but it's pretty isolated. And this is like you're everywhere all the time for everyone, which is a lot.
Was there anything new this year that you had to implement? I know that the county tells you essentially normally what things to
Yeah.
implement, but anything new this year and kind of what that process was like?
Yeah, I'd say for me, our testing platform, because for world language, we don't have any mandated district assessments. So I had done the thing that many teachers do, which maybe helped me be sort of relatable in that, which was I ignored all directives. I was like, archive, archive, just like swiping whichever way is delete and
Yeah.
archive. Like, "Nah, I don't need that." And then I got this job and I was like, oh no, I need that. Come back. Like, so really, Edulastic was one thing for me, like really having that was totally new to me. Luckily, it was new to everyone, or pair assessment, I guess I should say. It changed names, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Middle of the year, like when we just
yeah,
started.
mid-year for funsies, right? Because why not? Imagine if your car in the middle of the year was like, I am not a Kia, I am now a Toyota. And you're like, no, you're what? Like, that's what all these companies do. And I'm like, dear Flipgrid, we will never call you Flip. Stop trying to make fetch happen. Like, it's weird. Also, it's going away. Anyway, at least for free, right? So whatever. But I would say that was it, was like learning that platform and learning it as a teacher, because like they had questions that I was like, oh yeah, that's very specific. Like if a student does this and on this question, and then like math, right? Like math and science, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. They're asking these super practical things where I'm like, dang, if this was like Go Formative, is this was Blooket, Gimkit, like eClass even, D2L. This was any of the platforms that I know inside and out, this would be a piece of cake. But I didn't have to learn it as a teacher. So now I've got to go backwards. That was really, really tough. And not only know it, because that part's kind of easy. There's tutorials, there's video walkthroughs. The company provides PD. That's fabulous. But when are you learning it? Like, when are those issues like becoming issues? When there's 40 kids sitting in a classroom in front of a teacher taking a test. So not only is it like help, via Teams, like they can't see question 13 and it's all blank and whatever, but it's in the moment. So not only is it a thing that I'm like, I don't know, but it's also happening live in real time. And that was really stressful.
After that, did you have like a process that you kind of
Mhm.
used when people had for like a place that they could go to find
Yeah.
questions?
Absolutely. So I put them all together as we did them, collaborated with some other people in the district. So we had kind of like a couple, like I had a go-to document that was like common issues, common testing issues. And then I embedded their documents too, because we all have a slightly different formatting style, narrative style. You want the kind of at a glance, but it's really hard to make things at a glance, especially when you're, again, glancing with 40 kids in front of you. And I can say as much, don't forget, that's on the help document. I put it on the blah, blah, blah. But that is, like, super unhelpful when 40 kids are like, and you're like, "Girl, just link it right here." Like, "Send me a screenshot, quit being mean." We need to get, like, what would have been helpful? A screenshot. So we need to get a screenshot. We need to be able to Teams that to that person and also have systems and, like you said, procedures, like processes for myself to not go like, "Oh, where is that screenshot?" It's right here. It's like, saving images intentionally, saving things so that I can be kind of at command central at my computer, knowing 10 teachers are giving a test today, and I can zip over these screenshots like as they need them to help them.
Do you work apart as a part of a team?
Yeah. So there's at least at Collins Hill, there are 4 of us on sort of the tech team. We have the media center specialist, the media center clerk, and then the technology support technician, which is more kind of hardware based. And then there's me. I think the unspoken thing is sort of like the person in my position is kind of the lead. But honestly, we all work really evenly and like differently. And I'm super thankful.
Kind of already talked about this, but how you map out the learning needs of your teachers, it's kind of just of a what do you need from me that day? Or is there a time where you can actually get together
Mhm.
and work on things that they need?
Yeah, which is super nice. A little bit of both, all of the above. I like to give lots of examples, like templates, documents, like stuff. And that just comes also from my experience at conferences and in professional settings where I'm like, yeah, 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 but hand it over, right? Like I want some reflections and I want your files. Like I want your stuff. So like it's all fun when it's like, oh, this game or this template or this project. Yeah, okay, great. Hand it over and make it editable, right? That's just a personal philosophy that I hold really close. So I like to send out lots of documents or ideas or suggestions. And we have a couple of different ways we can do that. So they can be like, I send out like a weekly tech tip. And we also put them in our kind of weekly, like staff kind of newsletter, admin bulletin. And so there are different ways that people can kind of partake or not. And what I found is that opens up a lot of really good conversations. The more they see, oh, like, got it. Like you were a teacher 4 seconds ago and you're also a teacher's teacher, not looking down your nose at other people like, girl, if there's a shortcut, I got you because we're all used to having a million students and no time and whatever. So I like to kind of lead by example and with examples. And then when people say, hey, I love that warm up sheet. Can you tell me more about now we're talking about the warm up sheet. Really, what we're talking about is how do you start class? What are your routines? Let's talk about how you're differentiating some of those warm up question options. Like let's nerd out a little bit. But it started with just, hey, I like the formatting of that sheet kind of a thing. So it really happens in all settings. And I know the district is becoming really big on like coaching cycles and we're learning a lot about that. I think that's the part that feels cringe to me about the new job title is like the coach part because I'm like, I don't know, that feels kind of condescending. Like I don't want to, I don't know. I'm not coaching people. I mean, we are, but it just feels kind of cocky to be like, let me coach you and you're teaching. No, let me help you. Like,
Yeah.
let me support you. Like, what do you need? Or what do you need a thought partner? Do you need somebody to like partner teach the lesson? Not here to judge, man. I'm not evaluative. I'm not, I don't even, I can leave the radio in the office. Like, what are you here to do? You're kind of like an ally, kind of a co-conspirator. And I like that part of the job. So the conversations end up coming in both those ways, but also in a lot of informal ways as well, which is my personal preference. I don't want to like sit down and
Right.
let's go coaching cycle. Ugh, that feels like a
Right.
lot.
So obviously most of it's informal. Do you actually hold meetings with the staff? Because I know
Yeah.
that our Stephanie really doesn't anymore, but I was wondering if you do.
Yeah, fewer than I think before. Probably along the same lines of like she's probably be able to do things like in different ways. I try not to, although this year we're gonna do like once a month after school because I also don't like taking people's planning period because my
Mhm.
planning period was like my sacred time.
I
Even if you
know.
just dissociate for like 10 minutes, you're like,
Right?
don't take that time from me, like I'm gonna eat my yogurt. I'm going to plan tomorrow and make copies for next period. I'm going to write this quiz that we need in 20 minutes. Like,
Right.
get it. So I'm like, we don't need to. So I've tried to really decrease, like, unless it's something that the principal says, like, you have to hold a planning period meeting. Ugh. I've really tried to not. We're going to hold some like optional, like, just general technology things that end up helping us with tickets and support in the long run after school this year, but for like 20 minutes, right? Or we hold different things that are like, I've had like show and yell, right? Where I'm like, remember today's show and yell day. So like on your, if there's something that is really bugging you about some program, like, the way Synergy goes to scroll or whatever, all those different things,
The worst.
talk about it. Let's talk through it. Still can't get your phone attached to Wi-Fi. They changed the whole thing. It's a whole hassle. We'll fix it, whatever. Just come show and yell or
So I know.
confessions.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that fun? I was like, I love a good title.
It's
We
really
do
fun.
like confession session where it's like, come, we'll close the door. Tell me like something embarrassing about Google Docs that like you feel like everyone understands, but you don't, or like Google sharing, right? Because you're like, I swear I've shared this with the right people and they still say they don't have permission, things like that. Like I should know this, but I don't. So really just trying to like anticipate things like that and then deciding if there's a meeting like necessary or if you can just make a 5-minute video, send it out in that staff newsletter, then it's self-selected. You didn't have to like hostage PD anybody. And you also like got a chance to make a resource that you could use later on. Inevitably, I will make a video. Somebody will ask a question like a week later, and I'm like, well, like I certainly, yes, I can tell you that exact thing. And then they're like, girl, did you just make this? I'm like, no, I already had it, but you read my mind. So it's nice to also be intentional in that way. And I find that kind of asynchronous creation is handy for that, as opposed to like another meeting that not everyone needs.
The last thing I think is any advice for someone entering the like instructional technology design field.
Hmm. Absolutely. I would say find some people, do a lot of reflecting, like as to like, what do you feel comfortable with? What do you feel uncomfortable with? Like if somebody asked you a question right now, what makes you freeze? What makes you lean in? Like all of those kind of things, because that is going to happen super early. They'll go, oh, I know you're Miss Google. I know you're Mr. Microsoft or whatever. And you're like, uh-oh, like they're expecting me to know everything. And you're like, no, I just like it. So I think kind of reflecting very honestly about your skills, your preferences, and all those kind of things. And then finding a circle of people either like who are new to the position like you are. So Gwinnett does a good job as an example. Woohoo, GCPS of putting all of the first year people together. So we all got really close and we're all in a big chat on Teams, which is super vulnerable, super like exposed. Everyone is like very honest. Like it's one of the most productive and understanding workspaces I've ever been in. You can be super vulnerable or just like a couple people, bombard them with questions. If they say, hey, reach out anytime, take them up on that because they wouldn't have said it if they didn't mean it. So when you don't know something, it can feel like really disappointing or you can feel like embarrassed. And I finally just had to kick that to the curb because nobody knows everything.
Well, thank you so much
Of course.
for doing
I hope
that.
that's helpful.
Very helpful.